All right, now that we know what today we're going to talk about section 4.2 derivatives of products and quotients. Now that we know how to find the short form of a derivative, we can continue on. So we know about derivatives of constants, derivatives of the power rule, derivatives of constants times a power rule. We know about derivatives of sums and differences. So now we want to talk about the more complicated looking functions in a sense. So before we talked about that we had nothing about division with an x in the numerator, x in the denominator. We had nothing for products. Well, now this section we're going to talk about both of those derivatives of the products and quotients. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the product rule. So given any function f of x equals u of x times v of x, then our derivative of the product rule gives us the derivative of the first one times the original of the second one plus the original of the first one times the derivative of the second one. If we think this about this in specific, so if f of x equals u of x times v of x, this is u prime of x times v of x plus u of x times v prime of x. Now, since this is a product rule and our definition has this plus sign right here, order does not matter. We could have done u of x times v prime of x plus u prime of x times v of x, and we would have got to the exact same answer. So if you see me switch those, if it's a product rule, order does not matter because of the plus sign in between them. Now, with that being said, whenever we make it to the quotient rule, you'll see that that may change. So for this first one, f of x equals 2x minus 1 times 5x plus 2. Yes, we could multiply these out and get to an answer and then take its derivative and be simplified. We will start seeing in the next section or in a few sections whenever we talk about the chain rule on why we may not want to do that or may not be able to do that. So f prime of x by our definition is derivative of 2x minus 1 is 2 times the original of the second one plus the original of the first one, 2x minus 1 times the derivative of the second one, which is 5. Simplifying, we get 10x plus 4 plus 10x minus 5. So we have 20x minus 1 as our f prime of x, in this case right here. If we look at a slightly more complicated looking one here, f of x equals 4x cubed plus 2x squared plus 1 times 2x to the negative third plus 2. Our rules remain exactly the same. It doesn't matter how many terms we have. So the derivative of the first one is 12x squared plus 4x times the original of the second one plus the original of the first one, 4x cubed plus 2x squared plus 1 times 2x to the negative third plus 2. All right, let's go back a little bit. Last piece is not correct. How about we take its derivative, which would be minus 6x to the negative fourth. We need to FOIL out or distribute out in both of these cases and simplify. So we would have 24x to the negative 1 plus 24x squared plus 8x to the negative 2 plus 8x. Distributing in the second case, we get minus 24x to the negative 1 minus 12x to the negative 2 minus 6x to the negative 4. Then we want to see, can we combine any like terms? We can combine x to the negative 1 and this one, so they cancel out. We have 24x squared, because there's no other x squared terms. There's no other x terms, so that's going to be a plus 8x. We can combine plus 8x to the negative 2 and minus 12x to the negative 2 to get minus 4x to the negative 2. And then minus 6x to the negative 4. So this would be our derivative here. So always don't let yourself get caught up. You know, it's easy to make a mistake here. So we need to make sure that we're keeping everything on track to make sure everything is working the way that it should in order to be able to keep going and doing everything correctly. For now, when you see 2x minus 7 all squared, we need to rewrite this as 2x minus 7 times 2x minus 7. When we make it to chain rule, we will see a different way that's a lot easier to work this type of problem. So the derivative of the first is 2 times the original of the second plus the original of the first times the derivative of the second. So we have 4 times 2x minus 7, which is 8x minus 28 as our derivative here. For our next function here, I'm going to rewrite it over here. F of x equals the square root of x plus 5 times 3x minus 1. So if we find its derivative, f prime of x is equal to the derivative of the first one, which is 1/2 x to the negative 1/2 times our 3x minus 1 plus the square root of x plus 5 times the derivative of 3x minus 1 is 3. So we end up with 3 over 2x to the 1/2 minus 1/2 x to the negative 1/2 plus 3 on the square root of x plus 15. Simplifying this, we would end up with 9 over 2 on the square root of x minus 1 over the 2 times the square root of x plus 15 as our f prime of x. And to get that, I combined this term and this term because they're the same, and then I took that x to the negative 1/2 and converted it down and below. So all of that was for our product rule. The next thing we can talk about is our quotient rule. If f of x is equal to the rational function or the division of u of x divided by v of x, then we can take the derivative, f prime of x is equal to u prime, let's put a prime here instead of here, u prime of x times v of x minus u of x times v prime of x all over v of x squared, as long as v of x does not equal 0. Our little jingle that you can kind of keep in your head is low d high minus high d low over the square of what's below. So if we come over here, let's come over here. So low d high minus high d low all over low squared. So anytime that once you see this d, you differentiate the next piece in every case. So for this first one, x cubed over x minus 1. So f prime of x is equal to low, which is x minus 1, d high minus high d low over the bottom squared. And we could simplify this one out. When we simplify here, we get 3x cubed minus 3x squared minus x cubed all over x minus 1 squared, which would be 2x cubed minus 3x squared over x minus 1 squared. For this next one, f of x equals x squared minus 6 over x squared plus 7x. So that means f prime of x is equal to low d high minus high d low divided by low squared. If we simplify this, we get 2x cubed plus 14x squared minus 2x to the third minus 7x squared plus 12x plus 42 all over x squared plus 7x all squared. So that means that f prime of x is equal to, so let's see, 2x cubed minus 2x cubed cancels. 14x squared minus 7x squared is 7x squared plus 12x plus 42 all over x squared plus 7x all squared. So that would be our derivative in this case. The next problem here, f of x equals x squared minus 5 divided by x plus 1. It says find the equation of the tangent line at x equals 0. So just because we got a different style function doesn't mean we can't find anything that we've already been finding. So the first thing we need is our derivative, f prime of x. So low d high minus high d low over the bottom squared. So that's 2x squared plus 2x minus x squared plus 5 all over the bottom squared. So that's x squared plus 2x plus 5 all over x plus 1 all squared. Now keep in mind, this was finding the equation of the tangent line at x equals 0. So we need f prime of 0. So we get 0 squared plus 2 times 0 plus 5 over 0 plus 1 all squared. So we get 5. This is our slope. Now coming back up here, we need to find f of 0. So 0 squared minus 5 over 0 plus 1. So we get negative 5. So we have the point 0, negative 5. We have a point, we have a slope. So therefore, y plus 5 equals our slope of 5 times x minus 0. This would give us y equals 5x minus 5 as the equation of our tangent line here. Again, we can have business applications here. So P of x, R of x, and C of x stand for our profit function, our revenue function, and our cost function, respectively. The relationship between these three is given by P of x is equal to R of x minus C of x. Or in other words, profit is equal to revenue minus cost. Also, if we are given the price function, so lowercase p of x is equal to price. This is the unit price, and x is the number of units. So how they go together is that revenue is equal to our x value times our price. So revenue is price times quantity. So then in this case, P of x would be x times P of x minus C of x if we were given a price function. The next three types of functions we can be given are our average functions, our average profit, average cost, average revenue functions. We simply find those by dividing our profit, our revenue, and our cost by x. So an example that is given now. Suppose the total cost function is C of x equals 2x minus 1 times 5x plus 1. We're told find the marginal average cost function. So we got to kind of think about this inside out. We first need to form the average cost function, then come over here to marginal. So one way that we denote our average functions here is that this one is P bar of x. Our middle one is C bar of x. And then R of x divided by x is R bar of x. Those just mean average. So C bar of x is equal to 2x minus 1 times 5x plus 1 all over x. Now, first things first, sometimes doing the quotient rule is not the best thing. If there's an easier way, let's do it. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to multiply out that numerator. I'm going to FOIL it out. So we get 10x squared plus 2x minus 5x minus 1 all over x. Simplifying that, we get 10x squared minus 3x minus 1 all over x. This is still our C bar of x. Like I said, sometimes doing the quotient rule is not always the easiest. What if we just decided that we wanted to simplify this? If we took 10x squared divided by x minus 3x over x minus 1 over x and got 10x minus 3 minus 1 over x. Now keep in mind, this is still C bar of x right here. We need C bar prime of x. So C bar prime of x now is 10 minus the derivative of negative 3 is 0. The derivative, remember, minus 1 over x is the same thing as minus x to the negative 1. So its derivative would be plus x to the negative 2, or 10 plus 1 over x squared. If you wanted to write it as one fraction, this would be 10x squared plus 1 all over x squared is C bar prime of x. Either one of these would be accepted, either 10 plus 1 over x squared or 10x squared plus 1 all over x squared. It didn't tell us to plug in anything, so therefore that would be our final answers there. So for this last example here, we're told, suppose the unit price is given by the equation P of x equals minus 0.4x squared plus 3x plus 7. The cost function is C of x equals 4x plus 2 plus 412. Find the profit function P of x. So remember, P of x is equal to R of x minus C of x. So we have a c of x. So that's minus parentheses 4x plus 412. But our r of x, remember that since this is a price function, that r of x is equal to x times p of x, which is x times negative 0.4x squared plus 3x plus 7. So that's negative 0.4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 7x. So we would have that p of x is equal to negative 0.4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 7x minus that whole thing, or that if we simplify, p of x is negative 0.4x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x minus 412 would be our function p of x. Now, it doesn't say find the marginal or anything, so it's just asking for straight up what is the profit function in here. If it asked for the marginal profit, then we would go ahead and take this derivative, or if it finded the average, we would divide, but it's not asking for any of that.